Get in here.
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
Mrs. David Culp planted her spring onions yesterday. This isn't news. We need some real news. You got that column set up yet?
Not quite, sir. It takes a whole day to set up a column. And some of that type is in pretty bad shape.
Well, we've no money for replacements. Half of Beamsville haven't paid their subscription. I'm going to have to go hunt them down.
$2 a year is a lot. And besides, people like their dailies. The Globe, the Star, the Spectator. For 2 cents a copy, you get all the war news every day and in the morning.
The dailies have the latest equipment, Archie. A wider circulation.
We have to keep up with the war news. Everyone's reading it right now.
I think more people would buy the paper if we could find some real local news.
All right, Mr. Hudson. Here's one for you. I heard folks say they saw some mysterious lights going up Cave Springs Road.
Not that again. Probably a farmer walking up the lane with his lantern.
Folks say these were different, like flashing lights, like signals.
Signals to whom?
The Huns, of course. They could be all around us.
Is that a fact?
They could be.
Check your sources, Archie. You're never going to work for the big city newspaper if you don't have the nose for the story.
I don't know if I want to work for a big city newspaper. I've been with the Beamsville Express since 1908. And who else could work that old typesetting machine?
Oh. Hello, ladies. What can we do for you today? Would you like another paper to take down to the boys at the Niagara camp?
No, Mr. Hudson, it's about our trip to Hamilton. As you know, Mrs. Smith and I took the radio car into Hamilton.
Heaven knows, I have enough to do on the farm, but we just wanted to get something to put on our hats. You know, a little flower or maybe a bit of netting. Just dress him up a little for the summer season.
Oh my, Archie, don't think we don't like your wife's hats. She always does such a good job. But when we saw the ladies here for the Gibson wedding, we just got some new ideas. They were so stylish.
I understand, ladies.
Yes, but what brought you to the Post Express?
Well, we don't usually go into Hamilton. We do buy locally. But this time we thought we'd get something a little different.
And I'm not sure why you're telling me this, Mrs. Lane.
She's telling you because we don't like the way that it was reported in the paper. Some nervous and excited individual complained to the Hamilton police last Tuesday that Mr. Otto Herold had been making a sketch of the mountain while going up in the car that morning. Hamiltonians are jealous of the mountain. It's the only thing they have up there.
I have to inform you, Mr. Hudson, I'm not nervous or excited.
Well, I'm sorry, ladies. I write it the way I see it. Really? Sketching the mountain? How is that breaking the law? The Globe had news about the painter Lauren Harris. He sketches all over. Mark my words, he's going to be a famous artist one day. They're going to remember him 100 years from now. No one arrests him for sketching.
It's very different, Mr. Hudson. Mr. Harris is a Canadian from a prominent Canadian family and can go anywhere he wants.
Now I understand. You don't think Mr. Herold's Canadian?
He's not. He's a foreigner.
Read on, Mrs. Lane.
The police made a hurry-up run for the post office and asked Mr. Herold to show the contents of his satchel. The police chief said there was no danger of his being a spy and there was too much German about him and laughingly dismissed the gentleman.
End of story, Mrs. Lane.
The story is not over, Mr. Hudson. Not while we have that German fellow living in our midst.
Well, maybe this German fellow, as you call him, had business in Hamilton. He's a respected seed grower, I believe. I think he works for a fellow in Holland.
Why did he come here, to our town? I think he's from Berlin. That's where all those Germans landed in Ontario. And I know for a fact that Mr. Smit takes his peaches to the market there. And believe me, there's lots of talk about changing the name to something more Canadian.
Can you imagine? Your new kitchen chair might say, made in Berlin. What would people think?
That's right. Some of the names they're thinking about are Toronto, Burkana, and Adanac?
Adanac. Think about that one, Archie. What does that mean?
I don't know. Sounds Indian to me.
It's Canada spelled backwards.
Oh, that's clever. I'll have to tell that one to Mrs. Culp.
You know, Archie, not only are you a good typesetter, you're smart as a whip, too. Boy, too bad I couldn't pay you more. Anyway, with the cost of paper going up and the price of ink, I'm strapped.
I, for one, would be a lot more comfortable at that market if the town were known by another name. Perhaps one of our British officers.
Like Lord Kitchener, I presume. I see nothing wrong with that town being called Berlin. It has nothing to do with our presence in the war. That town has been called Berlin for as long as I can remember.
Berlin! Isn't that the name of the town where some of the patriots took down the bus to Kaiser Wilhelm and threw it in the lake?
Patriots. I call them ruffians, no matter what the paper called them.
Mr. Hudson, have you ever thought about what you can see from Cave Springs Farm? The Germans could be sending warning signals to the boats on the lake.
I suppose so, but there hasn't been any reports of suspicious activity. Besides, we have the War Measures Act. Any funny business and the Army would round them right up.
Mr. Herold has a place right beside Cave Springs. He could be hiding anything in those caves. Even German soldiers.
I used to keep my lunches in those caves when I went up as a boy. Used to keep them cold on the hottest days. I think there's still a few old lunches up there.
Archie, let the ladies get on with their story.
I'm not talking about lunches. He could be storing guns and ammunition in those caves.
Guns and ammunition? Come Saturday, I'm going up to nose around.
Archie, those caves have been searched many times. Remember that farmer who found a cave full of pottery years ago? Thought he found a cave full of native artifacts. Problem is he could never find the same cave again.
They're carved Indian heads. That's solid proof Indians lived up there.
I'm not sure those heads are authentic. There was a couple of stonemasons in the area a few years ago. Maybe one of them carved them up for a lark. But do go on, Mrs. Smith.
You reported in your own paper, Mr. Hudson, that the cavalry were guarding the Welland Canal.
That's proof our government is worried about the Germans. They could be planning to blow up the canal.
It's true I did report on the cavalry, but getting back to Mr. Herold, he was just sketching the mountain brow. Maybe it reminded him of his homeland.
A likely story. I think he was marking all the roads down the mountain.
You said that story made all three Hamilton papers, Mr. Hudson.
It's true, the Spectator had the story right. The Herald got it twisted. The Times said that Mr. Herold had skipped over to the other side of the line when he was in Beamsville the whole time. You see, Archie, there's an example of when the story's facts weren't checked.
Wait a minute. What happened to Mr. Herold? Did they drag him off to jail?
No, the police chief checked his bag, but let him go. But that doesn't mean he isn't a spy.
We need proof. I know for a fact that Mr. Herold's citizenship papers were checked and everything was in order. And do you know, Mrs. Lane, what prompted someone from Toronto to check Mr. Herold's papers?
I'm sure they were just doing their civic duty.
Mrs. Lane, why don't you read today's paper?
There is in every locality a bunch of busybodies who try to stir up trouble and annoyance for others? Well, I never. Mrs. Smith, let us take our leave. This newspaper is only suitable for lining the birdcage.
You are lucky that you own the only local paper, Mr. Hudson. This kind of newspaper reporting is going to make you very unpopular in Beamsville. If not, the rest of Canada.
The rest of Canada? You mean Beamsville's going to actually be on the map? Oh, I can see those subscriptions now.
Beamsville Post Express. Archie Culp here.
I don't care what you say. There is something very suspicious about that German fellow.
You need to be careful. As I reported in the paper, Mr. Herold has left the matter in the hands of his solicitor, as he has been a naturalized subject for the past 8 years. Now, ladies, that call is probably for me. So, good day to both of you.
Yes, Mr. Conkle. I'll tell him right away. Mr. Conkle has filed an affidavit swearing there are weapons on the German fellow's property. The press has been invited for a search party. They're heading up right now.
Yes, for once the big boys in Hamilton and St. Catharines are coming to a small town for a story.
I want to go too. I've never been a part of the posse. I'd really like to go up that winding road in your car. That would be a real adventure. Did you know there are 15 cars in Beamsville now?
Grab your notebook, Archie. Let's go settle this thing once and for all. And don't get ahead of yourself. You're not part of a posse.
I'm not a reporter either, but I do know Cave Springs Farm. He's mixing something. Probably sauerkraut? Yeah, they make sauerkraut all the time.
Shh. Let me do the talking. Good day, Mr. Herold. What are you up to today?
Mixing cement?
Looks to me like the foundation for an enemy wireless station.
Really? How can you tell?
Are you building a foundation, sir?
Speak louder, Archie. He's a foreigner.
Are you building a foundation, sir?
Yes, I am!
And for what, pray tell? Some kind of outbuilding?
Chickens.
Chickens?
Yes, don't most farms in Beamsville have chicken coops?
They do. That's a fact.
A likely story, Herold.
It's the truth.
Well, we'll just see, won't we? We understand there's been some unusual activities going on here.
Activities? Yes, there's plenty of activities on a farm. There's the hoeing and the weeding and the...
You're just over from Germany, the last boat, so to speak.
No, I emigrated in 1905. I'm a naturalized Canadian citizen. Would you like to see my papers again?
And who's living here with you?
My wife Clara and our children, Henry, Francis, Bernard.
Unusual names.
They are German names, sir.
Do you mind if we have a look around? What's in the barn?
Well, there's my seeding tables. I work for Max Budding, so who sells seeds. So there's some vegetables ready for seeding, some fertilizer, some hay, a pitchfork. What do you expect? Guns and ammunition?
Oh, simmer down, Mr. Herold. Constable has the right to ask questions.
Yes, but ever since the Kaiser invaded Belgium, everyone's been asking me questions.
So, why did you pick this particular farm?
There is much better land down below, but I guess the view is good. Right, Herold?
It's beautiful. My family loves to hike. It's wonderful to go up the road to the caves. The spring water's so healthy. And my boss, Mr. Budding, thought this was a perfect place to produce vegetable seeds.
Did you ever find a lake up there? I've heard where there's a hidden lake. I've never seen it though, but I sure would like to get an account for the paper.
This is a police investigation, George. Tell me about this, Mr. Budding. Is he German? Did he put up the money for this farm?
Germans do know us as Germans. It's only natural, but no, I bought the farm myself. I am trained in scientific agriculture.
Well, we are going to search your property, Herold. Archie, you take the barn, and don't leave a stone unturned. I'll search the house, and George, you stay here and watch that road.
Watch the road? What for? You really think that the Kaiser's going to be coming up the road any minute? Ridiculous.
That man is a fool.
Mr. Herold, tell me about your seeds. What kinds do you grow?
Oh, all kinds. Here, I'll show you some. Yes.
Oh. Boy, these look like some fine carrot seeds, Mr. Herold. And I suppose you're going to be saving squash seeds next.
Yes, that's right, yes. But when you're counting seeds or mixing cement, you shouldn't be interrupted.
I know exactly what you mean. People like to drop in on me just as I'm about to write the editorial for the paper.
We found a weapon.
Oh, that's it. That's the proof. A .22 caliber rifle.
Archie, get Mr. Herold's side of the story.
Right.
Herold, do you have anything to say before I arrest you?
Yes. My son Bernard likes to take the rifle and shoots the rabbits. Don't you like a nice rabbit stew?
A likely story, Herold.
Sounds perfectly plausible to me, Mr. Herold. A lot of the local boys hunt rabbits.
Well, we'll just seize this gun for evidence. I searched the house. There was nothing there. Although that pastry your wife was making did smell pretty good. Strudel?
My wife was making apple strudel. It's a very popular dish in Germany. You don't want to eat German food now, do you, Constable?
Well, it's getting close to supper, and I'm getting awfully hungry. Never mind. We'll be going now.
Archie, I want you to write the copy for this, but make sure you get the facts. Mr. Herold is building a chicken coop. His son likes to hunt rabbits. His wife, Clara, makes apple strudel. Another newsworthy day in Beamsville.
Told you before, Mr. Hudson. I'm not a reporter. I'm a typesetter.
We may be back at any time, Harold. According to the Spectator, there's no telling what the Huns will be up to next.
But I'm a naturalized Canadian citizen. Never mind. I'll be to saying good day, sir.
I swear, Mr. Hudson, that newspaper folder's getting more cantankerous every day. You could lose a hand if you're not careful.
Well, we've no money for new equipment, Archie.
Mr. Hudson. Mr. Hudson, you'll never believe it. That German fellow has disappeared.
Disappeared.
Yes, Mr. Constable keeps a watchful eye, and he told me that the farm is deserted. Of course, I told Constable Boyle right away.
Yes, and I hightailed it up there to look for myself. Gone. Even the barn was swept clean, and all those seed packets he had, gone.
Did he stop to get his rifle?
Of course not, Archie. If he was arrested, he would hardly be allowed a hunting rifle.
I was right all along. He was arrested. A German spy after all. I hope they have him in an internment camp.
It looks that way to me. I think they just nabbed him in the middle of the night. And they didn't even consult me. I guess the army is pretty busy these days.
Thank heavens. Now all day up to sleep. Why, sometimes I wake up in the night and think we're just surrounded by Germans.
They say the property's been seized by the government. It's true, though. No one up there. Rabbits all over the place. If only I had that shotgun.
The news is, he really was an alien, and I was right all along.
Believe it or not, Mrs. Smith, you're not always right. You see, Mr. Herold wrote a letter to the paper stating that he still owns the farm. Archie, here's an instance when a man can defend himself in print and clear his good name, no matter what the local gossip is.
That's true, Mr. Hudson.
Pray tell us, Mr. Hudson, what do you think happened?
He could be hiding in one of the caves.
Mr. Herold was not arrested, and Mrs. Smith, he is not hiding in one of the caves.
Nabbed by the RCMP. The Mounties always get their man.
Wrong again, Constable. You see, Mr. Herold did not earn any money for all of his seed efforts. His boss, Mr. Budding, went back to Germany and joined the army. And poor Mr. Herold had to hire a lawyer to rightfully claim the $9,172 in earnings that was owed to him.
9,000. That's a lot better money than I ever earned.
But where is he now? Just vanished into the night?
No one will want to live up there now. I think Hastings is haunted.
He and his family moved to Chatham. Hopefully the people there will be friendlier.
Whatever do you mean, Mr. Hudson? Beamsville is a very friendly town.
Well, not if it's 1914, and you're a German fellow.